You've been lied to about talent. Every single day you watch people who seem to effortlessly master everything they touch: business, investing, relationships, health, and you tell yourself they were born different. They weren't. They were built different. And that difference has nothing to do with IQ, luck, or connections. The wealthy don't learn faster because they're smarter. They learn faster because they think differently. See, while you're chasing goals, they're building systems. While you're looking for shortcuts, they're embracing the one thing you desperately avoid. And that one thing, it's the reason 95% of people will never master anything meaningful in their entire lives. Mastery systems, wealth. In the next 12 minutes, I'm going to expose the exact mental framework that allows the wealthy to dominate every field they enter. And fair warning, by the end of this video, you'll realize that the biggest obstacle to your success has been hiding in plain sight. The mastery lie. Here's the first uncomfortable truth. You don't actually want mastery. You want the results of mastery without the process. And that distinction is destroying you. Think about it. When was the last time you started learning something new, a language, an instrument, a business skill, and actually stuck with it past the first few weeks? Most people start with fire. They buy the course, read the book, watch the tutorials, and then something happens. The excitement disappears, and reality sets in. Progress slows down. The dopamine hits stop coming. And suddenly, that new thing you were so passionate about feels like a chore. George Leonard, who spent decades studying mastery, identified 3 types of people who never achieve it. The dabbler, who loves the initial rush but quits at the first plateau. The obsessive, who pushes so hard they burn out. And the hacker, who gets just good enough and then coasts forever. We fail not because we aim too high and miss, but because we aim too low and hit. The wealthy, they're none of these 3. They're something else entirely. And understanding what makes them different is the key to everything that follows. The plateau secret. Here's what nobody tells you about skill development. Growth doesn't happen in a straight line. It happens in brutal, frustrating plateaus separated by sudden breakthroughs. Imagine a staircase lying on its side, long flat stretches, then a sudden jump, then another long flat stretch. That's how mastery actually works. And the wealthy understand this at a cellular level. When a millionaire starts a new venture and hits a plateau, and they always hit plateaus, they don't panic. They don't pivot, they don't quit. They line in, because they know something you don't. The plateau isn't where progress stops. The plateau is where real learning happens. Your brain is literally rewiring itself during those flat periods. Neural pathways are strengthening. Connections are forming. Skills are being consolidated below the surface. The plateau is where compounding begins, in skills, in knowledge, and eventually in wealth. If this is making you rethink how you approach learning, hit like and subscribe to reprogram more of these blocks. The next insight might be the one that changes everything for you. Because here's the real question: if the plateau is where the magic happens, why does everyone run from it? Systems over goals. You've been taught to set goals your entire life. Write them down. Visualize them, put them on your vision board, and here's the brutal irony. Goals are what keep average people average. Think about it. Every Olympic athlete who didn't win gold had the same goal as the one who did. The goal didn't separate them. The system did. As James Clear puts it, you do not rise to the level of your goals. You fall to the level of your systems. The wealthy don't wake up saying, "I want to master this." They wake up and execute a system designed to make mastery inevitable. Systems beat goals every time. A goal is a destination. A system is a vehicle. And here's the thing about destinations: knowing where you want to go means nothing if your vehicle is broken. The wealthy build vehicles first. They create daily practices, feedback loops, and accountability structures that make progress automatic. They don't rely on motivation. They don't wait for inspiration. They engineer environments where mastery is the default outcome. And this leads us to something even more powerful: the specific way the wealthy approach learning itself. The 80/20 model. Here's why the wealthy seem to master things faster than everyone else. They don't learn more, they learn differently. While you're trying to absorb everything about a subject, every detail, every nuance, every edge case, the wealthy are doing something radically different. They're identifying the 20% that produces 80% of the results, and they're ignoring everything else. This isn't laziness, this is strategic intelligence. When Elon Musk entered the rocket industry, he didn't spend years getting a PhD in aerospace engineering. He identified the fundamental principles, the physics, the cost structures, the key engineering constraints, and he went deep on those. Mastery isn't about knowing everything, it's about knowing what matters. The average person spends 80% of their time on the 20% that barely moves the needle. They study trivia instead of principles. They perfect details before mastering fundamentals. They collect information without ever converting it to knowledge. The wealthy flip this equation entirely. They become dangerous at the fundamentals first. Then, and only then, do they expand outward. But this approach requires something most people are terrified of. And that brings us to the real difference between the wealthy and everyone else. Embracing failure. The wealthy have a completely different relationship with failure than you do. When you fail, your brain interprets it as evidence that you're not good enough. When the wealthy fail, their brain interprets it as data. Failure equals data. This isn't positive thinking. This is neuroscience. Research from Stanford psychologist Carol Dweck revealed something profound about how mindset shapes ability. People with a fixed mindset who believe talent is innate crumble when they fail. People with a growth mindset who believe ability is built actually perform better after failure. Their brains literally light up differently when confronted with mistakes. I have not failed. I've just found 10,000 ways that won't work. Here's what makes this deadly powerful for the wealthy. Every business venture, every investment, every skill they pursue, they expect to fail. They budget for it. They plan for it. They don't just tolerate failure. They hunt it, because each failure narrows the gap between where they are and where mastery lies. The question isn't whether you'll fail. The question is whether your failures are strategic or random, and that distinction depends entirely on what comes next. Feedback loops. Here's a question that will expose everything. When was the last time you deliberately sought honest feedback about your performance, not compliments, not encouragement, raw, uncomfortable truth about where you're falling short? Most people avoid feedback like it's a physical threat, and neurologically it kind of is. Your amygdala, the fear center of your brain, processes negative feedback the same way it processes danger. Your body literally goes into fight or flight mode when someone criticizes your work. The wealthy have trained themselves to override this response. They've built what psychologists call feedback loops, structured systems that force honest assessment into their process. 1. They hire mentors who challenge them. 2. They track metrics obsessively. 3. They review failures weekly. 4. They seek out harsh critics. Ray Dalio, worth over $15 billion, built his entire company around what he calls radical transparency. Everyone at Bridgewater Associates is expected to give and receive brutally honest feedback. No ego protection. No sugarcoating. As Dalio himself has stated, pain plus reflection equals progress. The wealthy don't just tolerate feedback. They've made it the engine of their growth. And this connects directly to perhaps the most counterintuitive wealth secret of all. Identity shift. This is where everything changes. The wealthy don't just learn skills, they become the person who has those skills. There's a massive difference. Most people approach mastery from the outside in. I want to be rich, so I'll learn about investing. I want to be fit, so I'll go to the gym. I want to be successful, so I'll read business books. Identity drives behavior. The wealthy approach it from the inside out. They shift their identity first. They don't say, I want to learn about investing. They say, I am an investor. And that single shift in language rewires everything. Because when your identity changes, your behavior follows automatically. You don't change your life by changing your actions. You change it by changing who you believe you are. An investor doesn't need motivation to study markets. A writer doesn't need discipline to write. An entrepreneur doesn't need willpower to take risks. These behaviors flow naturally from identity. James Clear calls this identity-based habits. The wealthy have been doing it instinctively for generations. They don't set goals about what they want to have. They make decisions about who they want to become. And once that metamorphosis begins, mastery isn't something you chase. It's something that chases you, but there's a hidden force that makes this transformation either possible or impossible. Your environment. You are the average of the 5 people you spend the most time with. You've heard that before, but here's what you haven't heard. It's worse. You're not just influenced by the 5 people closest to you. Research from Nicholas Christakis at Harvard shows that behaviors spread through social networks up to 3 degrees of separation. Your friend's friend's friend affects your likelihood of obesity, smoking, and yes, wealth. The wealthy understand this at a visceral level. They don't just choose their friends carefully. They engineer their entire environment for mastery. Your environment is either building you or breaking you. There is no neutral ground. Think about your phone right now. What apps are on the home screen? What notifications interrupt your focus? What content fills your feed? Every single one of those choices is either accelerating your mastery or sabotaging it. The wealthy don't fight their environment. They design it so that winning is the path of least resistance. They surround themselves with people who are already where they want to be. They eliminate distractions before they need willpower to resist them. They create spaces where deep work is the default, not the exception. And this environmental design connects to the most powerful compounding force the wealthy understand: compound mastery. Einstein allegedly called compound interest the eighth wonder of the world, but the wealthy know something even more powerful than compound interest: compound mastery. Compound mastery changes everything. Here's how it works. When you master one skill, you don't just gain that skill. You gain a meta skill, the ability to learn, and that meta skill makes every subsequent skill easier, faster, and more connected. A person who has mastered chess develops pattern recognition. That pattern recognition transfers to business strategy. Business strategy transfers to investment analysis. Investment analysis transfers to risk management. Each new domain doesn't start from zero. It starts from every domain that came before it. An investment in knowledge pays the best interest. This is why the wealthy seem to have a Midas touch. They're not starting from scratch in each new venture. They're leveraging decades of compound mastery across multiple domains. Every book read, every skill developed, every failure analyzed adds another layer to their compound advantage. And this brings us to the final piece, the one that ties everything together and reveals why you've been stuck: the wealth code. Everything I've shown you, the plateaus, the systems, the 80-20 focus, the failure hunting, the feedback loops, the identity shifts, the environmental design, the compound mastery, they all connect to one single principle. The wealthy don't master things despite the struggle. They master things because of it. Every obstacle you encounter is not a wall, it's a filter. And the only people who pass through that filter are the ones who refuse to see difficulty as a stop sign. As the ancient Stoic philosopher Marcus Aurelius wrote, "The impediment to action advances action. What stands in the way becomes the way." Right now, there is something you've been meaning to learn, something you've started and stopped multiple times, something you've convinced yourself you're just not talented enough to master. That thing is not beyond your reach. You just haven't built the system yet. The wealthy aren't different from you in capability. They're different in methodology, and now you have their methodology. The question is, will you actually use it? Build the system now. Or will you do what 95% of people who watch this video will do: feel inspired for 20 minutes, and then go back to exactly the same patterns that brought you here. Here's what separates the people who just watched a video from the people who actually changed their lives: action, not tomorrow, not Monday, not after you finish one more course or read one more book, right now. You now understand that mastery isn't about talent, it's about systems. That plateaus aren't failures, they're where real growth happens. That the wealthy don't avoid struggle, they engineer it into their process. Knowing is not enough, we must apply. Willing is not enough, we must do. Pick one skill, just one. Build a system around it. Embrace the plateau. Seek feedback that hurts. Shift your identity from someone who wants to learn into someone who already is. And watch what happens when compound mastery starts working in your favor. If you made it this far, comment compound mastery to prove you're ready to build your system. Mastery is inevitable. Your mind is either programmed for wealth or poverty. Now you know how to reprogram it. If this exposed something in you, subscribe. There's more to uncover.